Good afternoon, Dr. Rivera. I'm Michael Martinez, and on behalf of Lion Branch Studios, we would like to thank you once again for your partnership, your assistance, and patience with the development of Missouri Riverbank Restorer game project. Over the past few weeks, our team of developers have worked vigorously to create a game that is capable of enlightening students to the Missouri Riverbank area and highlight the importance of conservation efforts within the region. The final build of this project that we present to you is one that we believe can meet the original project goals of creating an educational but entertaining gameplay experience. To explain the key game features of the project, I will pass it along to Alex.
Thank you, Michael. So the key game features that we have are the overworld that is connecting the three mini games. This is based roughly on the Frontier Park area. There are several landmarks in there that will make this Frontier Park replica be very noticeable for students, especially if they go out into the real world and see this park for themselves. They'll be able to recognize and associate this game with the Frontier Park in St. Charles. Another feature that we're very proud of is the guidebook. This allows players to interact with flora and fauna in the overworld and then see those changes reflected as entries in their guidebook with hand sketch drawings that show the plants that they've interacted with in game, as well as having a model of the item that they interacted with in game. So, kind of taking that low poly model and being able to associate with a much more lifelike version so that players are able to identify them as they go out into the real world. Um, a lovely feature as well is the dialogue from Dr. William Watterson. This allows the players to go through the level with minimal intervention from the teachers. It creates a immersive experience that's guided, so teachers aren't having to hover over students' shoulders and guide them through this game, as that can be challenging in large classes. So we wanted to try and alleviate that as we could. Another amazing thing is the easy integration of customizable lessons. New mini games can be added in the future, and this is all very easy to do with how we have built it. This allows for objectives to be modularized and really create a custom learning experience tailored to teachers' needs. Um, like I said, especially with the scannable objects in the guidebook, these are very easy to create. So allowing teachers the ability to say, "Hey, we're not seeing this, but this is a plant that's covered in our class that we would really like to see." Something that would be very easy to implement into the game with very few steps. Like I said, and this allows those learning objectives to be modularized and tailored to students' needs. Another amazing thing is the cumulative quiz at the end that tests the player's knowledge of what they've interacted with throughout the game. At the end, there is a quiz. It's a few questions. They're more basic at this point. However, that does not mean they're easy by any means. If you don't know the materials, you may not get them all right. So, especially going through the lessons, it tests the players' interactions with the game itself, as well as a lot of information is given throughout the mini games that is present in that quiz. So it shows and showcases the students' understanding of the game that they just played. Moving forward to the game mechanics, movement is something that's very important in this game, especially making the games feel interactable. With the trash collection and the water testing, that's less interactive, and it's more just about understanding the principles of what is truly affected by bad water quality and pollution in the area. So that's a less personal situation. So we use a different type of camera in that. But when we get to the animal and plant game, we bring the students right in close to the animals. And the movement for that is very simple with WASD keys, and this will all be outlined below the game as well as in the documents that we provide to you and teachers, so that, if students are having trouble, they're able to look and find that information to progress with the game. We also, like I said, we chose WASD and the arrow keys because, that's a pretty common control for for games nowadays, and especially young students like that have access to computers should be able to pick that up relatively quickly. The controls are not complex by any means. Dialogue interactions are prompted by hitting E. This is also mentioned in the game description, as well as in the documentation that we provide. The guidebook is also controlled by hitting E, or sorry, excuse me. The guidebook itself is opened with G, or you can click on the UI element in the game, which is at the bottom right of the screen. So that gives two options for players to use to be able to interact with the guidebook and open it up should they choose one way or another. Uh, as far as adding items to the guidebook goes, arrows drop down above and hover above plants that should be picked up. So this allows students to know what they're looking for, and that's also a press of the E key, I believe. And that allows them to populate that into the guidebook and enter it into their journal. As far as the water testing minigame and trash collection minigame goes, this is all point and click. Like I said, we're focusing on more of the specific detriments that poor water quality has and pollution has. So, a point and click game really does allow the player to take in the information rather than worry about what's going on in the game itself. And then once again, at the end, we do have a cumulative quiz. We went with a multiple choice direction as this does give students the chance to get some wrong or and also not have to take too much time. That was something that we really wanted to make sure of is the time constraints that students have. So choosing a multiple choice game, cumulative quiz at the end, really felt like the best direction to go. And then as we move forward to standout gameplay moments, like I said, the mini games are each standalone, one of a kind creations. The overworld, especially, and filling out the guidebook with interactable objects, is something that is very beautifully done and well done at that. It's a very easy and streamlined process. It makes sense. Like I said, the modularization that we touched on earlier um, really allows this to be one of the core features of this game. Um, changing environment reflections, changing environment based on what the player does in mini games is something also that we really were happy to be able to implement. That was something that was discussed by you as well, was making sure that everything that's done in a mini game is able to be seen and you can see how it changes in the real world. So originally the trash before the trash collection mini game is completed, there's trash all over the level and it's very disgusting and it's quite an eyesore. But after you complete that mini game, trash is cleaned up, the area looks much better, animals are starting to come in, and then as you go into restoring the riverbank, everything just kind of molds together and becomes one cohesive unit, and that's something that we're really, really happy to see, and we hope you like it. I'm going to pass this on now to Jake, and he will tell you about some of the programming more in depth. Thank you very much, and here you go, Jake.
Hi, this is Jacob Tucker. As one of the leads on the programming team. Headed a lot of the development for the code and the programming side for Missouri Riverbank Restore. And I'm going to talk a little bit about kind of the development process. And before that, I'm going to talk to you about the standout gameplay moments. Our game primarily revolves around these mini games, and so a lot of our key gameplay moments are doing that water testing mini game, trash collection, and our invasive species experience. All of these mini games are connected through our overworld, where you can fill out the guidebook by interacting with the plants and animals that you find in our in the overworld level. As the player progresses and completes the mini games, the environment changes and is reflected by the player's work, eventually leading to the key moment where they have restored the riverbank to its pristine condition. Our development process, we were divided into a number of smaller teams. We had programming, 2D art, 3D art, narrative, sound, and quality assurance. We had excellent communication between team leads, which facilitated rapid development cycles between very diverse departments. We did really great on just maintaining communication between all the different teams. And now to talk to a little bit more about the programming. Our team was responsible for developing and maintaining the code base, fixing bugs, game mechanics. We created the systems for tracking collected guidebook objects and progressing through the mini games in a linear way. And it was our job to generally ensure the game ran as smoothly as possible. We designed this game with future growth in mind. Our framework allows for rapid integration of new mini games, scannable objects, and new learning objectives. All of our components are built as a modular piece, offers flexibility in adjusting, reordering, and replacing those pieces. Using this framework, we can create customizable lesson packages tailored to diverse subject matter. This adaptability ensures the game can grow and evolve and meet varying educational needs over time. The game was developed and optimized for WebGL so that it'll play on your standard school Chromebook. And then just talking a little about our client feedback, we took that into consideration. We went a completely different direction with our plant and animal mini games. We decided to combine the two together into a compound experience, which takes the player through learning more in depth about the in-game animals, replacing invasive plants with native species, and having encounters with invasive animals that are causing havoc in the area. Try to take as much of that feedback as we could into consideration and really stick to keeping the game educational and hitting some of those learning objectives that we know are very important. Anyways, that about wraps it up for me. So I'll hand it off to the next person. Thank you.
Hello, my name is Lily Cash and I'm one of the 2D artists that worked on this project. Our 2D art team was in charge of a number of things, one of these being character design. We made designs for 2 characters in the game, one being the player and the scientist, Dr. William Watterson. We also worked on a number of user interface designs. These include things like the title screen, the pause menu, and individual text panels that are personalized to each of the mini-games. In the player guidebook, we illustrated more realistic renditions of each of the flora and fauna that the player can interact with in-game. This is to offer a comparison between the 3D models and give the player a better idea of what these species would look like in real life.
Hi, Dr. Rivera. As a lead for the 3D modeling team, I wanted to specifically cover a few of the 3D art and design choices that were made for the game, why they were made, and how they relate to addressing the concerns that you've had these past few weeks about the game, and how we plan on creating an engaging environment for students to learn in. The first thing I wanted to address that the 3D modeling team was responsible for was all of the models you see within the game. A few examples are just the various flora and fauna that you see located throughout the scene as you progress through the game. An exciting thing about the fauna is that all of the fauna have animations in them to make them feel more realistic and lifelike in relation to their real-life counterparts. There's also various landmarks that have found in Frontier Park, but have been dispersed throughout the game scene to help sort of give it a little bit more life and help relate to students a little bit more about them being in their local ecosystem. We also have very different props located throughout the game, such as trash, and this just kind of helps fill in the scene a little bit. And I know there are lampposts located throughout Frontier Park, which will help students identify exactly where they are located and how this relates to the ecosystem within their local area. One of the main concerns that the EcoLearn Foundation had about the 3D art within the game was its simplicity and how well students would be able to relate the models into the real world. Originally, the modeling team had chose a simplistic low poly art style, for the game, and this was to address the optimization issues of students having to run the game on Chromebooks. To address this issue, the team has taken steps to integrate the 3D models into the guidebook. And this just allows students to be able to refer to the 3D models within the game environment to their real-life counterparts listed in the guidebook. Alongside the guidebook integration, another thing that the 3D modeling team was focused on was the creation of the player character and the professor within the environment. I know one of the major concerns was having students to be able to customize their character, at least based off of their skin tone and or color preferences for their outfit. While this isn't necessarily integrated in the game just yet, it is something we'd have planned for a future patch within the next couple of weeks. And last but not least, we've introduced a custom shader into the game. And this Toon shader will have a predefined color palette, and that just means that everything is kept consistent and looks like everything is part of the same game.
Hello, my name is Reagan Blair, and I was the lead narrative designer for this project. The narrative design team, comprised of myself and 2 other wonderful individuals, was responsible for a handful of tasks. The first of these, and main task for the writing team as a whole, was developing a compelling narrative in the form of a script. We wanted to ensure that players felt that, while the ultimate goal of this game is for educational purposes, the interactions were still fun and engaging. To do this, we designed Dr. William Watterson to be an exciting character to speak with while still acting as an informational cornerstone for the player. The other main task for our team was researching the specific information that would be included in minigames and guidebook descriptions. This information is made readily available to the player throughout the game and outlines core learning outcomes for students. We also designed the quiz that tests the player's knowledge of this information, being mindful that many players may play the game differently, and thus may focus on some pieces of information over others. Because of this, we tried to write the quiz in a way that covers the wider concepts of the game, rather than picking apart specific details. Finally, the writing team was tasked with compiling any extra informational documents, including instructions, manuals, and other game overviews.
And now we're on to the sound design section. So for sound design, a majority of our work here was creating sound effects for the game, and that primarily includes accurate animal cries. As this is an educational game, we wanted to be as close to real life as possible, and that includes all the animal cries for all the animals that are in the game. There are also various footstep sound effects, water rushing along the river, anything like that. And then we also were working on the music. The music has multiple themes, some for a dirty river, some for a good river. We've got minigame themes and title themes that are soon to be implemented. And then in this current build, we don't have it, but we intend to implement dynamic audio. So the cleaner that the area gets, the nicer and prettier the audio will get as well.
Hello, my name is Kellen Williams. I'm from the Quality Assurance or QA team. We were responsible for testing the game throughout the entire development cycle. This included ensuring everything from minigames to the overworld functioned properly and that they were adhering to our predetermined plan for the game.
Thanks, Kellen. After our initial concept pitch, we listened carefully to the feedback you provided, and we did our best to adjust the development of the project so we can deliver a satisfactory product to you as well as to our students and educators. One of the biggest concerns we received surrounded the animal collecting minigame and the plant minigame, where they weren't reaching satisfactory levels of player engagement and gameplay design. So we overhauled both of them and combined them to create a more interactive experience by having players search for and remove invasive species, and in the case of plants such as the trees, removing the invasive species and replacing them with native ones. During our initial presentation, much of the audio, 2D, art, and 3D models were missing from the gameplay experience. So we made sure to include as many of these elements as possible through the game, which can be seen through our UI elements, our environments and minigames, as well as the background music you'll be hearing. We listened to what was said about the guidebook and made sure to allow players in this final build to be able to seek out various kinds of flora and fauna interact with them, and unlock information surrounding them in the guidebook, which can be easily accessible throughout any point in the game. The method we used previously with sharing educational information, such as with the water dosing minigame, was positively received, so we made sure to proceed to incorporate the same method for the remaining minigames. The unclickable objects in the first presentation of the project was due in large part to our errors in our system, and we apologize for that. But we made sure to adjust them and the models so we can avoid that issue as much as possible for this build and all foreseeable iterations of this project. The previous user interface that we stated to be somewhat lacking or having unnecessary aspects, which is why with this version of the project, they will now include dedicated art and have size adjustments so that interactions with the interface can be a lot easier and avoid certain issues. We were informed that our initial designs of the riverbank region needed much improvements, such as making it feel less empty, and thus our development team dedicated themselves to creating as many 3D models and 2D art to help fill in the region and have it reflect its real-world counterpart as best as possible. Lastly, the idea of showing players the result of their hard work in a game was also imperative, so we made sure that players can, as they completed tasks, they would see the environment would evolve, transforming the polluted region of the Missouri Riverbank area to its ideal healthy state, with all nearby trash removed, crystal blue waters visible, and showcase as many of the native plants and animals as possible. To further discuss how our project has improved over time, I'll pass it along to Carly.
Hello, my name is Carly Merhart. I'm a lead 3D artist and tech artist. I'm also an audio engineer. We've made a number of improvements since our initial concept. We've combined the plant and animal minigame into one cohesive experience. We've also added some music. We have a playlist. We also have our guidebook built out. We've got rotating 3D models as previews. We've got research blurbs that our research team has put together. And we also have 2D sketches that our amazing 2D art team has done for our guidebook. We've also done some environmental adjustments. The idea is to allow the player to see the environment improve as the game is played. During the game, the player will literally see trash and invasive species disappearing before their eyes as they play. We've also updated our UI design for an easy-to-use, user-friendly aesthetic. We're not done yet. We still have a lot of improvements that we want to put in. Namely, we want to give the player some customization options, particularly to their skin tone. We'll have a more controllable camera in our water testing minigame, giving the player a little more interactivity. We also plan on handling situations where our camera is intersecting with geometry and therefore blocks the view of the game scene. It will also give the player an opportunity to learn about each plant or animal as they play through the game and fill out their guidebook. We also plan on integrating character sprites in our dialogue sequence. We also intend to add voice over and sound effects to our characters, and we also have some dynamic music planned to help with that feeling that the environment is becoming nicer and cleaner as the player involves themselves.
And now we're going to show up a short gameplay section for our game.
Once again, on behalf of Lime Branch Studios, we thank you for this wonderful opportunity and we hope you enjoy this game. Thank you.